Hi, Mavis. Yes, I'm well. I hope you are too. So good to see you in class today. I'm glad you're able to come. Have you been able to do any tatting this past week or so? Actually, I should know that because although I haven't been on the online tatting classes Facebook page really this week, so I don't know. Haven't kept track of what everybody's doing and working on. Oh, good. I'm glad you're well too. I keep looking down because I'm trying to straighten out some tatting. I had this big bunch of thread, and all I needed was, so I cut it all off because all I needed was this one little teeny, I don't even think you can see it, but we'll show it later, a little teeny piece that I've started this week. I haven't got much tatting done. I've been doing more research than anything. Tonight you can't, but we'll watch the replay. Okay. That's great. I know last week I forgot to put the replays up. I can't quite seem to, hi Katia, can't quite seem to get into the rhythm of getting everything taken care of. Now today again, I have set it up live, so I shouldn't have to, it should go right up live on YouTube. I shouldn't have to switch anything about it to make it go live. Can you, oh, I should ask, can you hear me? I'm assuming you can because Mavis, you answered a question already, so. Great. Thanks, Katia. I tell you, you did some that had to finish a baby set. What kind of a baby set are you making? I'm going to grab some water just a moment here. I have to reach back behind me because I've learned not to put it on. Oh, a knitted newborn. Oh, how fun. I have to reach back behind me because I no longer put my water on my on the table when I'm here teaching with the computer because I have spilled it almost to my computer before, almost on top of it. Oh, it's delivered waiting for the baby. Okay. Well, hi, Aurora. Great to see you here. One of the things I want to talk about a little today is the history, just a little bit about the history of the design class. And Aurora was one of the original people who was in the class. Now, when I talk about people being in the class and the original people, I'm not saying that I taught them to design or anything. We did a lot of, the original people in the class, we did a lot of collaborating together. So I do want to talk a little bit about that, because this week's, after last week's class, it was only Katia and Mary and I who were there and got to talking about the topic of the Catherine wheel formation, like making a solid spiral, which led into more research, and I had a little hollow brain cell up here that didn't put things together. Yes, escargot, the snail. And that's led me into a whole different topic for today. And that's one of the things that's always been nice about the design class is there are things that just, it's been so long since I've thought about them or talked about them that they just don't pop into my mind anymore. They get lost somewhere in there, and there seems to be this empty brain cell that's not giving me the information I'm trying to find in my memory. And I'm going to talk about research a little because going about it can bring you to so many more avenues of possibilities. And I learned about 2 things that I did not know before. So I never did reach back for that drink of water, so just a moment. And I have to admit, a little while ago, I was rushing to finish up, and I have a big coffee table, or a big end table by my chair that I work in, and I have my water there, and wouldn't you know, I knocked it over and spilled water all over there, so I had to quick grab the paper towels and clean that up. But my water is still back there because it will not go anymore on my table here. Okay. I've had to have the heat on so much that it's really, normally in Colorado, it's very dry inside, even if the humidity happens to be up outside, which, excuse me, which even, it only goes up high outside if it's raining or snowing, so it always happens to you. Yes, I will, Mavis. I was trying to do it live so it'd go right up, and I didn't, and I forgot about it. I will definitely put that up. And usually, before it goes up publicly, you can always use the, thanks, Aurora. I'm assuming that it means bless you. Oops. Now I lost track of what I was in the middle of saying. Might have been about the humidity, but it might not have been. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, the researching has led me to quite a bit this week, and I did more of that than any tatting or working on something, even the lesson plans. So, but there are some things like this topic that I've talked about so many times, we can easily do it. Let's see, it is 1 o'clock. Let's give it a few more minutes, because usually a few more people pop in. Not always. Oh, that's what I was talking about. Partly is that in the classes, we used to do a lot of talking back and forth and sharing ideas. And so I learned as much from the supposed students in the group than I taught them. Should be able to have access to the video by, oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's what I was in the middle of saying. Thank you, Katia. Yes, before if I haven't put them out public, you can usually then still reach them by using the link that is sent in the class, because that stays up. The class is considered unlisted up until I release it, if I'm doing it in that mode. And so then the class link is still works. the class video link no longer works once the unlisted class is then released to the public. And now today I was able to, I couldn't get it to work last week, but this week I was able to get it set up that it'll go, that it's open to the public, so it'll be live right after I end the video. Let's see. I guess I ought to just start, because what I want to do is start giving a little bit of history about the class, because I do mention previous students so often, and I call them students because officially I'm the instructor, but back then when the classes, the design classes actually started in 2010. A few of us got to talking in the online tatting class that Georgia was teaching, and we're talking about getting together as a design group and we'd like to do something with design. And since I have a background in design, I said, well, I'd love to teach. I thought, I'd love to teach it. So I contacted Georgia and asked her if I could teach the design class, that some of us were talking that belonged to the online tatting, her online tatting class, and that we'd like to have a design group. And I asked if we could do it on the online tatting classes Chatsy program, or what, the online Chatsy site. And she said, sure. That'd be great. So that's when it started in 2010. And originally there were those of us, mostly who were attending the classes at that time, Georgia's classes, and Aurora was one of them. You hear me mention resources from Nanetta and Mooscan often, and they were in there. Tammy, of course. And let's see, Melanie Survey and Gina Shilatani and others, Phyllis Smith. There's so many others, and I can't just offhand list them all right now. And when we were in the Chatsy, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's simply you had a text box, just like the class, well, if you ever saw Georgia's classes, obviously, where we just typed back and forth. And I always used to think how wonderful it would be if to show some things through a video. But I found now what happens is we don't have as much discussion as we did back then, and sharing of ideas a lot of times. But last week, it was just Katia and Mary and I, and so we were texting back and forth. They were texting to me, and so I was talking, and we got into a good discussion. And it was about, and I miss those. I miss the way that we used to share more back then, because everybody was busy. In fact, everybody was texting, and you had all the people, so the chat was going fast, and sometimes little side topics, all related to design. Design really is a subject that when it's taught, it involves a lot of, it can and it should involve a lot of discussion and sharing of ideas. It's not like a technique class like Tammy does now in the classes, where you're learning how to do a specific technique, and a class like that really has to stay right on topic, or students can get lost in learning the technique. But in this class, the back and forth between all of you and myself is really important, because design is a discussion type topic, and we can all learn from each other. So, and I think I'd like to, because so many of you don't know how or when the design classes started, I'd like to start giving a little more history of how all this fits together with the design class and the online tatting class, and which is why Tammy mentions this class a lot, and I mention the online tatting class and use the resources a lot. And that, me using the resources, all comes about because of the fact that I've been in contact off and on. I'm not a close friend of Georgia's, but in, I don't even remember what year it was, she used my Heart's Desire patterning class. And then I started, doing the design classes. And so it's kind of gone along when she decided to retire in 2019, I believe. She had mentioned in class that she was going to retire and ask about anyone interested in teaching the classes. Well, at the time, I went to school. I went back when I was 40, went back to school in multimedia technology and learned how to do web design. So during the class, I texted Georgia and offered to, I said, I'll take over the website and keeping it going. Only the next thing that pops up is Georgia saying, well, Sue's going to take over the classes for now. And I thought, oh, well, that's not exactly what I thought I was volunteering for, but I thought, let me try, I'll do it. So that's when I stepped in, and I started doing the Monday class, Georgia's regular class, and kept on doing the design class, and I was taking care of the website, and of course everything got too much for me, but that's a whole nother story, and I want to continue. So many people now, new students, new tatters, don't know how everything evolved, and so I'd like to bring that into our discussions once in a while. So, because I think that needs to be known. And although there is a description of the transition of the classes from Georgia to like Tammy, there's not, a lot of the information isn't there. And since I was part of that, I want to let people know how everything, came about. So, today let's go to the class topic today. Last week, Mary brought up wanting to make a coil to start her design, which led us to talking about the name of what, a flat solid coil chain would be, and I just was coming up blank. And I said, and we were talking about, is there another name for it, and what's it called, and I said, I don't think there's another name at all, which is totally wrong. And when I was in bed that night, not sure, I guess I thought about it earlier. I thought something isn't right about that. Because all that was coming to my mind was a Catherine wheel join, and not a formation, a Catherine wheel formation, which is similar to a rosette. So I have to correct that. What she's talking about is a Catherine's wheel. Now, if you're not familiar with that, and one of the first things I did when I knew there was something missing in my mind was doing some research, and I found out through an email that Katia was doing the same thing, and we both came up with the same document. And I'm going to switch to my screen to this document, and it is in the online tatting classes files. Oh, that's what I mentioned before. Because I was doing the website, that's how I ended having access to the online tatting classes files. directly through Georgia. There will be a needle tatting class started in the upcoming month. Oh, that's right. Tammy told me. Katia, you're going to teach that, aren't you? That is wonderful. There's been a need for an online needle tatting teacher. Pam was doing it for a while, but she's so busy with taking care of the email and everything, and that is more what she wants to do rather than teaching. Yes, that is fantastic, Katia. I'm so excited about that. I know a little bit about needle tatting. I know how to get the stitches on and like do a ring and all, but I've never gone farther than that. So I don't know how to do all the different. I should come to your class. Do you know yet? Well, maybe Tammy's going to announce that when it's going to be, but that is so exciting, and I'm glad you've mentioned it here, so everybody will know too. Oh yes, Pam does so much. Teaching is, even though I've done this design class for years, it's still, when I go to teach a class, well, first of all, after all these years, there's things that don't, when you start learning so much, it's hard to remember individual things all the time, and especially when you're live online talking like this, to go from what you're talking about and something comes up and you're trying to thinking, where is that? And your brain's on a different wavelength. So you're already working on planning how you'd like to do it. Wonderful. Well, if you need any advice or anything, I'm always here to help you. Email and I can help you. Not that I do a great job on the videos like Tammy does, but I have to say she had a lot more time preparing, because she's the one, although it wasn't known by other people. Georgia, I don't even know what year she started, had asked, Tammy had done a few tatting videos on her own, and then Georgia asked her, had seen the videos, and Tammy was in her classes, and asked Tammy if she would do the videos for her for the online classes. And Tammy said yes, but she's not the type of person to promote herself. So she never told anybody until one time, and I think it was at a Palmetto's. Oh, you're welcome, Katia. Oh, Mavis, yes, I agree. I prefer shuttle too, and I'm not good at it either, so I just don't pick it up and use it. Yes, we all agree, Aurora. It is work, no matter how long you've done it, because I'm always trying. I want to come up with new ideas and different things than what I've said before. Anyway. I think it was at a Palmetto's that somebody had been talking to Georgia and realized that Georgia didn't have those beautiful long nails that were on the videos. And so most people had no idea that it was Tammy that was behind them. And they call Tammy's hands, I don't know how they word it, that she's Georgia's hands. Oh, you learned it back in 2006 from Georgia. Oh, she has so much knowledge, and it was so wonderful about sharing it all. And it's so wonderful that we're able to continue the classes and use her work. I know a whole other thing is the Bella site, and which I actually have written permission from her in an email after a telephone conversation about combining the Bella files along with her web files from the online tatting classes. And she really is excited about that idea, and I have started doing it, which doesn't run into copyright problems because they're both her copyright, her work, and it's all her original work. And a person who owns a copyright to their own work like that can give permission to somebody else. You can't do it without their permission to use their work. And I do have that permission, and it's not personal, it's permission for the online tatting classes. It's permission for me to combine the files together, which means they're not always word for word, because when you're combining information from two different sites, and so that's a whole nother topic. But anyway, I do have permission, which means I can change the wording some, as long as I don't change the, and it's just small things to put them together into paragraphs of one that makes a whole that is organized and makes sense. That would be great if we could, yeah. I know Georgia hasn't done anything except for the video she did. And I know in that video, the one that was done at Palmetto's, the interview, I don't have the link for that right now, but I know you can find it in the online class if you search in the Facebook page. Or if you search, I'm not sure how Palmetto's has their new website set up, but you should be able to find and watch that video, because she does talk about transferring the classes in that. And that's the last time I think she's been online at all. So, with that said, let's get to talking about the Catherine's Wheel. I'm going to switch to my computer screen, which now shows this window, which I'm going to put down. And here is the document that is in, you can see up at the top, the online tatting class files. And if you go to the techniques page, you will find, I think there's a handful of documents on Catherine's Wheel, and of course on the Catherine Wheel Join. And this is what Katia and I both came up with when we started researching. I also sent it to Mary, and because she had not found it, so I had sent the link to her. You saw that on YouTube, and let's see. It was the first time you knew about her. You were very impressed with her. You mean Georgia or Tammy? Tammy did the interview. So anyway, the Catherine Wheel is a coiled chain. And that's how I'm going to tie this into, the very first element in design is line. Without lines, you don't even have shapes. Georgia, oh, the first time you knew about her. Well, that's great that you saw the interview then. She is a fount of information, and there are hundreds and hundreds of files, which is why it's hard to get them online, because they all have abbreviated names that make sense to her but not the rest of us. So when somebody calls Tammy and says, do you have this pattern that Georgia did in classes? It's like, what does it look like? Because there are I think at one time I looked, 12,000 files. And to go through that many files, and they're split up into folders for the year that they were presented, not the topic or what kind of a pattern it was. Anyway, I didn't mean to get into so much of that. But this is one of them. I know there are a couple more files that I'm going to look for, and I do still, not regularly, but from time to time, help Tammy with the website. And so I'll be able to find and put up on the online TEDing class website the information I find tied with whatever topic we're talking about in here, which is this Catherine's Wheel. Now the name, isn't that terrible? I always think about things. In a minute, I want to talk about research and show you one book that I know I've shown people before a lot, and maybe even since we started in January. So anyway, there is a name for a coil, and here it is. This is a Catherine's Wheel. And we're going to be talking a lot about chains, because what is a line, a design line? We form that through chains in tatting. There are connecting elements and also design elements, which is what a chain is, the design element in the Catherine's Wheel. It was later that Elgiva Nichols, in her book, well, it's right here in front of us. Let me just grab it. It's beside me. And actually, there's two books. I'm going to switch, just so we can look at this, on pages 45 and 46 of Tatting Techniques and History. Notice this, I'm reading the first paragraph here. She shows examples of this work. So I'm going to switch to my other screen and do my Surface. Okay, here is the book that article is talking about. This is one of my favorite books. I don't remember if I showed it recently as one of my favorite books. It's one of the first books I ever owned. As you can see, I use it so much, it's actually coming apart at the edges and insides. And on page 45 and 46, she's talking about, now this is mock rings. Dealing with chains, it's mentioned in here. I don't think I can remember exactly where. Oh, here we go. Designs composed of chains alone. That's not showing up very good, but I'll read it. It says a number of edgings can be made. That funny, I just read this. But I know that, let me show you the actual page. Here's where she actually shows one. And this is the Catherine wheel, just like what you show, is shown in this article. But however, at the time, Elgiva does not give a name for it. And off the top of my head, I don't remember who named it or where it first started being used. I believe it was in one of the small early publications. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that right now. And there are two different ways that this can be done. Notice right here, it is, let's see if I can zoom in close. Or if you've got it pulled out up on your computer, this is done with a, it says traditionally the coil mats have been made with a shuttle thread and a lock join. And a lock join is going to give you the little dip in the middle, the V shape. And Tammy's just been talking about this in doing with the hat, the handsome hat pattern. But a lot of times you want your coil to be flat, and so there are a couple different ways you can do this. Now this one talks about a tied double stitch join that blends it in. Now this is not the same as a Catherine wheel join. That came about later too. So this tells you how to do that. And there's the motive that is in here. Okay, the Betty Alderson, thank you, in the IOL Bulletin, 1997. Thank you, Katia. And that is a wonderful join to use, both the tied double stitch join and the Catherine wheel. Now, which are you going to use? This is where in design you need to have, samples made of these different things, because it depends upon the particular design you're making, which join you're going to choose to use. So this is one of them, and what I would like you all to do is begin keeping a sample notebook. Now we talked about the chain study that Muscan did, and she did that after one of the design classes that we were talking about chains. And if you have all these things made, all these samples, it's so much faster when you're designing to say, oh, I have a sample of this. How many stitches did I use, and what did it turn out looking like? Block tatting is also mentioned, and the word solid tatting, along with Catherine wheel coils and coils, because they're totally made of chains, block tatting and the coils, and they come out with a solid look. And here's a heart. So now this is the one thing got us into talking about this to begin with, is how are we going to diagram this? Mary said, how would I diagram this coil? Well, this is one of the more common, well, there's basically only two ways. This way, where you just indicate it with back and forth lines for the block tatting. And even though, notice, your chains are abutted right up to next to each other, so it's a solid line. The diagram lines do leave space between them, because, the diagram lines are thin and the stitches themselves take up space on them. So to give the right proportions, you don't want your lines to be right next to each other. They have to give the idea of this size of a square. And the same goes for a coil. I've had a difficult time even finding a diagram for the coil itself. That too, and we'll look at that in drawing that tonight in the diagramming class. You're also going to, when you make your spiral for the design, you are going to want to leave the space in between it, because when you diagram, you're putting just a single line down the center of the chain, because you're not using a fat line the same width as or height as a chain is. So that's why we'll put lines. I have also seen it done with simply straight lines. Let me go back here to my, sorry about all this switching around. Let me pull up. This is my streaming software that you see on the screen now that I use along with YouTube, at least for this moment. Okay, let's go to my surface. There's a blank piece of paper that I can draw on. I'm going to draw on my little bird paper here on the back side of it. Oops. Do I not have a pen beside me? Probably not. I have one behind me on my table. For the block, I've seen it done with just straight lines like this, not the curvy, but just straight lines like this. So I think either way, I don't think one or the other way has been designated as the way to diagram a block or a coil. So as what I was talking about is the coil is we can start it like this, and depending upon how we start it, this circle will be one way. My spaces are way too big, but you will want to diagram it with some space, not this much, more like that. So that's the way you're going to be diagramming this. Go back to me. Are there any questions so far? There are a couple different ways to begin. Oh shoot, there's where I'm a little disorganized today. I want to go back to this. This does tell you one of the ways to start a coil, I believe, that it was in this document. And research, one of the things I found to research I started out with the words coil and spiral, and finally managed to come up. I got all kinds of different things with, and it dawned on me, the Catherine's wheel. So of course then I went to the online tatting classes and looked it up. Hi Mary. Oh, I was just talking about, we're talking about the Catherine wheel formation. When I started researching, all I was coming up with too is the Catherine wheel join, and I'm like, no, I'm looking for a formation. So, I understand getting phone calls, Mary, when you're, which makes me think of my brother, and I had mentioned him waiting for a call about him, and he was in the hospital for 3 weeks. He had fallen when he was getting out of bed, and he broke his leg, and he also hit his head, so he had a brain bleed. So he was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and just this past week, the hospital released him, and he's spending 20 days in a rehab center. So totally off topic. Yep, you could only find the join. And you know, that's the thing with researching. I mean, you can put in like spiral, I found when I put in spiral, it came up with and I'm going to mention it in a bit, a video on how to do a spiral ring. And I'm thinking, a spiral ring? I've never heard of a spiral ring. Oh, you did! I just showed that in class. I have it. I just showed that a few minutes ago. Elgiva Nichols, Technique in History. That is one of the books one of my first books I ever found back when I started, because there weren't a lot of tatting books to even find. Yeah, she talked and wrote about it, yep. And I still need to take the time to find the web pages. I know she must have had a couple web pages that she did on it, and probably Bella online, so I'm going to be looking through all that information to pull more together. And it will all go up on, eventually onto the online tatting site website, because the permission that I received and for the online class and for Tammy, that involved combining the Bella pages with the website. So anyway, you ordered it, Katia? Yeah, that's one of the best books. She shows just about formation you could think of that was around at that time. And we're only talking back in, I think this book it's in the 70s that she was writing her books. Oh no, 62. This is 1962 copyright. And I have the Dover edition, first published in 1984, which is the orange book. I also have her green cover book too, which is not exactly the same as this book. They are two different books, even though some of the things are duplicated. They're both wonderful to have, because you can learn so much from them. And as a designer, that you need to learn everything you can about tatting and about researching. Sometimes you have to put in all different kinds of combinations of words to come up with what you're looking for. Okay, so I was looking to see here where oh, here it is. It's right in the first line here. Start a chain, leaving a loop large enough to bring the shuttle through later. Now this is similar to what you do when you make a mock ring. You have that loop at the beginning so you can close the ring. So in a way we're doing the same thing. In this method, now there's a couple other methods for doing this, and they do chain 3, tiny picot, and 3, chain 3. And then in the end you bring the loop up through and pull it up, forming a small closed mock ring. Leaving a tiny picot, continue clockwise and chain enough to reach enough picot. Now remember, as each round, when you're designing, as each round goes out, the length between those picots is getting longer. And in order to not have the work cup up like a cup, unless you're meaning to make a little miniature cup or something, well, like the crown of a hat that goes down and cups down, you need to add more stitches between the picots because it's a larger distance. Each time you go around, it's a larger distance between the picots. Now, where you add them in, some people do every 2 stitches, some do every 3. I've done every 4 or 5. And I also am using a little different method, and I'll show you why. So I think that's all about this particular document right here. And there are in the technique resources under Catherine Wheel a couple of articles in the online tatting class website about the join, and I think there's at least one pattern that I know of. So I'm going to close this and bring up, I guess, my service again. And I'm going to get my little piece here that I use to show you the little snippets I've been working on for something you've seen before, my bird, of course, because I'm still designing his wing. Now in this version, I haven't been making coils close together, and I do want to continue to use in part of this, as it's gotten bigger here like I have before, the picots. But I never quite liked the way the this ring that I started with works. And of course with a ring you get a one chain coming right out at the base of the ring. I don't know how my focus is doing here. And what I think I would like is more of a spiral that looks like a beginning spiral without a ring. Now, the method that was just described in that article by Bev does show starting this way. And I want mine to be a little different shape, so there's two different. The second thing I did was, is it on, oh, not on that piece. I probably dropped it already because it's just a little tiny piece. Oh well. I wanted to make more of a, I did kind of a half moon shape, which was actually like a folded ring. Could be Catherine Wheel with bigger picoted joint. Yes, Katia, and here's what I've done. It's right here on my crochet hook that is sticking through a picot. Bring this up to show you. My lighting is okay. Now let's see, this actually started. Let me bring it up farther on here. I think it shows better if I bring it up on here. Let me see if that focus will, if it will adjust itself. It looks here almost like, I think the other thing that's happening is that, I'm going to push this all the way down here so I can manipulate and use my hands at the same time. And I'm going to tilt my, there, this is better. I'm tilting my screen down too so I don't get that brightness, because I need not to have that brightness on there. Yeah, bear with me. Let's hope that my camera refocuses. I need to get a different camera really to show up close things. Okay, it looks kind of like, I've got to try my hand again, and I hate to take out this, maybe just against the black of my computer works better for it. I'm going to try and make this hole a little bigger that I've got in there so I can pull the crochet hook out. Ah! Oh, you can't see it. I think it's because it's yellow thread. Oh, maybe you can see this now. If I hold very steady and point it out. Okay, what I want you to notice is that right here, notice how the end of my chain, or my beginning chain started right there. But notice how that beginning chain, above it, there is, I cannot get, I definitely have to get myself a better camera for this. And I think what I'll do is make a sample out of my size 3 thread. But you can see the yellow above it. Color, see how wide that is? I did not slide my shuttle through the loop and close it up. So this is a continuous chain going around the end. It doesn't come out of the end. Because right here where I joined, instead of putting my shuttle through, I used that loop as a picot, and I did a Catherine wheel join. So it's hard for you to see, but it makes it look more like a continuous spiral than a ring where the one chain comes out of the base, because it doesn't. The spiral starts right there, goes around, and when I get back here to that beginning loop, I made a Catherine wheel join. And makes it smoother. And that's what I want to do for my bird. I like that look better. And out of a different color, I think it'd show up better, but I just grabbed some thread to start working with. The other thing I did is, notice it's not a complete round circle. That's because I did not do an even number of double stitches. I actually started out and I think I did 4, picot 4, picot 8, because I want mine kind of oblong. I don't want it round. And so that's another design thing. Think about how you can get different shapes out of the same idea of a coil, but by doing it this way, with just starting with just a chain and then joining to the beginning loop of the chain, and by the fact that I altered the number of stitches, gives me a continuous look of more of an oval. Even though at first glance it looks like it's a ring in the center. It is not. And that's the kind of decisions that you find when you're designing. And you have to research and know which join do you want to use, and which, what shape do you want it to be, and how can your chains make that shape if you're using your chain in this way rather than it just as a joining unit. And I've talked this is where we're back to research. There is a design process that, you're just seeing my keyboard again. There is a design process that we're going to be talking about now, and the very first step is research. And then you start, and kind of at the same time, like I have with my wing, start your first prototype at the same time. And there are 5 steps. You've got research, then you start your prototype, and then you're going to make your final design, and then you're going to have your design tested by someone else than you, because when you get to writing your pattern, of course that goes along with doing the prototype, is writing down or around your sketch, or diagram, either notes around, and also starting to write it in an instruction form. Redo the prototype once, twice, 40 times. Exactly. This process is not a straight line process where you go 1 through 5 or 6 or 7. Again, like the design principles, the design process is sometimes listed. They're all those basic 5 steps, but in different fields they might be listed or described a little different way. But it's not just a straight through and you're done. It's an evolving. You might go from step 2 back to step 1, and you might go down and be working on step 3. You might have to go back to step 2 again or step 1. It's an evolving process throughout the main big process. And experimenting, redoing, it can be frustrating. So you do need a bit of patience. And think about it, a lot of it is mindset. Think about it as an experimental adventure. To me, it's intriguing, and you get into researching, well, what could I use instead of this? What else is there out there that I could do? Not only to make it work the way you're visioning it, but to come up with ideas for more originality. So it's not just like something that somebody else has put out there. And so I want to talk next week about a spiral ring. When I was obviously using the word spirals, I came up with a video by New Bear on spiral rings. And I'm thinking, I've never heard of a spiral ring or done it. And so, of course, I got a hold of Tammy and I said, what do you know about the spiral ring? And she said, all I know is what it is. She said, I know that it's, she said she'd seen it, but she'd never tried doing it. And then I know that it was either Muscan or Nanetta that started doing doing some research on it too. And whenever we talked about any topic, they were off and studying that particular topic. Another thing I came up with on a video, one of the videos that came up too was a right angle, making a right angle with your chain. And I'd never seen that done in that technique. I've used pointed chain before. And so we're going to keep talking about chains. And for a couple weeks, and before we go into talking more about shapes and other things, we're going to explore what we can do with chains. So make chain samples. Try a couple different ways to begin your spiral. If something comes to you that we haven't talked about, try it. See what works for you. See what you like, how it turns out looking. A practicing technique, yes, that's a perfect way to think of it. That might not be used often, and understanding how every movement and thing work together. Oh, Katia, you have a design mind, that's for sure. And yes, the right angle is interesting, and we're going to talk about that too, and talk about corners and right angles. So if you're not working on a design, a particular design, start just doing, sit down for 10 minutes and start doing a spiral like this. Write down whether you put it in a baggie or how you keep your samples is up to you. I, of course, use baggies a lot. Some things I have found with my index card where I used a row of double-sided tape for my ring size samples, that the sticky tape is getting dirty. And so I'm thinking about looking into getting some of those sleeves that you can put on index cards to keep them clean. Combine sizes of the thread to make it more interesting. Yes, Aurora. That when we talk about texture, we talk about that. And different sizes of thread can give you more texture. Denseness of stitches, how close together or far apart they are, gives you visual texture. And interest and originality comes about. That is your teaching mind, Katia. That's what's going to make you a wonderful teacher. Yes, that's what kind of mind you need for teaching. Padded tatting is different. Although it can use a larger size of thread inside for the padding. So different size of thread is one technique used for padded tatting. But it is just a different technique. The padded tatting is where you're working around. It's almost like, and it doesn't have to be just a bigger size thread. There's quite a few examples of encapsulation is involved, where you're using unflipped stitches to encapsulate the threads inside. And it can be the same size thread, but maybe 4 to 6 or something of those threads all together that is inside for the padding. And what head? Sometimes you're going to see me looking funny. It's because half the day today I had my glasses on, and then I put my contacts on, and I'm trying, it's like, can I read? Oh, your behead. Yes. Oh, you need to put an eye on the, there's a couple ways from that. I have a lamb. I'm not sure I can pull it. Let me see if I can pull it up right now. And I'll show you one way to add a bead in. You didn't think of the encapsulation. That's what these discussions are so wonderful, because we do it kind of, oh yeah, what about this or what about that? I hadn't thought about it. And that happens to me a lot. And that's where, when you are designing, if you're working with somebody else that can give you feedback on your design, or us in here. Now, I understood too, Aurora, and knew exactly what you were both talking about, because they are connected, with the thread being inside of stitches and padding them. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to use a larger size thread inside. So these are all things. You can just, I get lost down a rabbit hole of, like I did this week, of finding other things like the spiral ring and the right angle while I'm researching for the Catherine's wheel spiral and solid tatting, and it's hard because the things are go by different names. Oh, a square ring would be a kind of work which is, yes, exactly. In a square ring, you're going to use a really finer thread inside than outside, so that you're working over it, and in the corners then, you'd have, like, say, an arc of double stitches, and then you're working over a fine thread. Then you do a couple stitches, like maybe 2 stitches, a picot and 2 stitches, or just maybe 4 stitches, and then you put that fine thread back inside so that when you close it and pull the fine thread, it pulls together into a corner. And there again, I think you can get a total. I know you get an angle, and I think it can, depending upon the number of stitches and all, come out to be a right angle. And that's how a square ring is made. So that's a great example. Thank you, Aurora, for bringing that up, and Katia. These are all things. Square rings aren't used a lot in patterns. I have been experimenting, but it was about 2 years ago, with a turtle shell and using a square ring technique to get the little, well, they're not exactly squares, they're more of like, what would you call it? A trapezoid shape, I think is the word for it, for the design on the turtle shell. And the right angle, I did happen to find that both Nanetta and Muscan have articles, I believe, on right angles. Not tense too much. The third, oh, the square will disappear. Oh, okay, okay. And I don't think a square ring has been done in a long time in the online tatting class. So think about adding one of those into your design, or just go into studying. I'd like to see you do a study of samples, not the third thread, the auxiliary thread. Okay, okay. It's funny, I pictured the right thing anyway. I think of so many of us are, when, you know, and if you want to be a designer, you tend to be a visual person. So even if you don't quite understand the words, you understand, you get the picture in your head of what it is. Okay, yeah, and that's a great one to research and to work a design around, is a square ring, or just something that's got right angles in it. So those are 3 things right there, that techniques you can start doing a design around. And even if all you do is maybe just a small little square piece that has something inside it, or a round piece, and you put some of the square rings together. Start putting a few together. Even if you only put like, say 3 or 4 square rings in a row, or put chains between them. As you manipulate that shape around, you might see different things. Think of, I always think of Jean Eberl's Tat It and Sees, her TIAS projects. She'll start one out and say, well, what do you see? And different people come up with all different ideas of what her project is going to be, and ideas of what it could be. If you followed through on what you thought it looked like, could take you to a whole new original design. The square ring can be a triangle, even an octagon. Yes, yes. And here we start getting into our lines becoming shapes. And so I'll probably keep talking about chains for another couple weeks, different times, testing things out, trying things, what we can do with them. Start your own sheet, like, oh, I do think I have, let me pull up a document here. Let me see if I put it in here. No, those aren't the right 2. I don't have them right in my document. I had them in a document that I had just started. Oh, I don't have. Oh, I do have the, here, let me take you to my screen. This is the spiral ring from New Bear. Whoops, I just closed it. It's coming on right here. And I'm going to go to about here. She's putting in the join. After you make your ring and close it, you pull the thread behind and put in a join, and look, it gives you a spiral look. Now the only thing with that is it gives you that wonderful spiral look, which I think is fantastic. The thing is, if you're not already working with 2 threads, the spiral rings are made obviously because it's a ring with only 1 thread. And like for me on my bird wing, I thought that little teeny beginning, and I'm going to have to try and add a new thread in there somehow. I thought that really will not work for me exactly. Now she's putting the thread on the front because she's working on the back side. But even when you flip to the right side, it's going to make the spiral the other direction. And I think this is a beautiful effect that would be great in a design. Look at that. When you turn it, she turns it to the front on the one side, and especially if you do it a little tighter, you can do it so you barely even see that thread that's laid on the back side. Whoops. Let me see what else I had. Oh, here's Lillian Tats has got a oops, it's coming up. Probably came up down here. This focuses on the Catherine wheel join and straight angle making on the base of her little mushroom. Notice she's got straight angles down at the bottom. I thought I had the chain study on there too, the link, but I don't see it on my little paper. I didn't get all the way finished with planning, so I think this is where we'll stop today. We can continue talking about the spiral and scroll. I'm going to continue talking about chains and lines, but since oops, where's my YouTube? Let me bring up my YouTube again here. I think I lost, well, my face is on there and I know it. I lost my YouTube in my chat somewhere and all these things. Which I know is here somewhere on my desktop. That's not what I want. I'm trying to close down things and get my YouTube back so I can see the chat. Well, anyway, I can't see it. You can see me. We started talking about shapes with the square rings and all, so we will start sooner than I thought, probably talking about shapes, because lines make shapes, and shapes are what tatting is all about, and what you think about when you're doing designing. How can I make this shape? So that's all from me today. I know I'll see some of you back tonight for the diagram class. And have a wonderful week if I don't see you tonight. And play with your tatting. Do some experiments, make some samples, keep them so that later you can say, oh, I've done that before. Let me go get my little sample and see how many stitches I used to see how big it turned out and what size thread I used. So I love you all, and I'll see you next week or tonight. Bye-bye. And now I have to find my YouTube page to end the video. I'll stop streaming, but then you wouldn't even see me. And oh, here we go. I bet nope, not that screen. I'm still looking so I can close the video. Bye-bye, everybody. I found it.